you know that today we're talking about Taoism. It's one of the oldest religions, although it's thought of as a religion, but it's not really religious, and it's not practiced in China as a religion. It's practiced as a philosophy, as a way of life, as Tai Chi, movement. I'm sure it has dietary aspects of it. So the more I learn about these kinds of things, the more I don't know. So, and it was interesting that Dolores explained a little bit about Taoism, because she explained it in a very understandable, linear way. Well, the philosophy is not at all linear. So I asked you to suspend not just judgment, but suspend that need to control what you're hearing, what you're feeling, what you want and what you don't want. Because Taoism is that philosophy that's off the deep end. You'll see. You'll see. I'm going to, let me tell you about the books I used. Dr. Wayne Dyer, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. He took a year. There's 81 short verses of this philosophy, and he took days and weeks on each one, and then wrote a little essay about each one. The second book I'm going to use is The Tao of Healing by Haven Trevino. He studied Taoism, but then when he was diagnosed with ALS in the early 90s, he really began to take it to heart. And so he wrote this small book, which this is one book that I keep near my bedside, and just read it at night before I go to sleep. And it's a wonderful interpretation of the Taoist verses. They have been translated more times not more times than the Bible, but it's the second most translated book in history. So let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to mention as introduction? So there were. It was interesting reading these two different versions, because in Wayne Dyer's book, you may notice the word God and the word love and the word forgiveness. Three of my most important spiritual words are actually missing from Wayne Dyer's book, but they are in this book. You'll see. So breathe. Your breath is that part of you that can be the intermediary between control and freedom. So this has to be absorbed in freedom. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The Tao is both named and nameless. As nameless, it is the origin of all things. As named, it is the mother of 10,000 things. Ever desireless, one can see the mystery. Ever desiring, one sees only the manifestations, and the mystery itself is the doorway to all understanding. So we have to let that sink in. So one of the books I read also was called The Tao of Pooh. You remember Pooh Bear? who exhibits great peace and great love and great amusement to all of us. And if nothing else, we need to look at our confusion with amusement. I try to do that. So we do learn I just think that with many translations of the Tao, that there are so many parts of it that are really, that must have been found their way into New Thought. I appreciate that our bulletin today has a symbol, the symbol of Taoism, and this is probably my most favorite of religious symbols, because there's one part that's dark and one part that's light, but there's always a little darkness in the light, and there's always a little light in the darkness. The traditional symbol is black and white. But the most important part of the symbol to me is not just the flow, that the parts move into each other, but that they're surrounded by a circle, which symbolizes the oneness, the absolute oneness of all life. So I'm going to read the second verse. Under heaven, all can see beauty as beauty, only because there is ugliness. And that brings up the symbol to us, the light, the dark, the up, the down, the life and the death, all moving into each other. Only because there is ugliness. All can know good as good, only because there is evil. Being and non-being produce each other. The difficult is born in the easy. Long is defined by short, the high by the low. Before and after go along with each other and yet are opposite. So the sage lives openly with apparent duality and paradoxical unity. The sage can act without effort and teach without words. Nurturing things without possessing them, he works, she works, but not for rewards. He competes, but not for results. When the work is done, it is forgotten. That's why it lasts forever. So I think in this verse, he's trying to let us know that we don't have to try so hard. And we certainly don't have to have control. And he talks about, Lao Tzu talks about that a lot later on. We just don't have to follow the urgings of the ego, which are so powerful in our minds. But remember that your heart has no ego. And we'll be looking at some verses from the other book. The 11th verse brings in another part, another aspect. 30 spokes converge on a single hub. It is on the whole in the center that the use of the cart hinges. Shape clay into a vessel. It is the space within that makes it useful. Carve fine doors and windows, but the room is useful in its emptiness. The usefulness of what is depends upon what is not. So it's asking you to live with the consciousness of what is not. To explore not just what you want out of life, but explore what you don't want. And accept all of it. Accept all of it. Because each part that exists depends on the other. The 14th verse is about living beyond form. And we depend on form so much. So let's think what's possible without form. That which cannot be seen is called invisible. That which cannot be heard is called inaudible. That which cannot be held is called intangible. These three cannot be defined, therefore they merged as one. Each of these three is subtle for description. By intuition you can see it, hear it, feel it. Then the seen, unheard, and untouched are present as one. Approach it and there is no beginning. Follow it and there is no end. You cannot know it, but you can be it, at ease in your own life. Discovering how things have always been brings one into harmony with the way. So he's asking us to see what we cannot see and to touch what we cannot touch. And know that it's all one. It's all part of the oneness that we are. So in the 15th verse, it's about living an unhurried life. The ancient masters were profound and subtle. Their wisdom was unfathomable. There's no way to describe it. One can only describe them vaguely by their appearance. The muddiest water clears as it is still, and out of that stillness, life arises. So using our intuition, allowing in silence, in our own peace, in reaching for that peace that we know is within us, and finding out which way to go, which direction to go by our intuition, and living through our hearts. The 29th verse. Do you think you can take over the universe and improve it? I do not believe it can be done. Everything under heaven is a sacred vessel and cannot be controlled. Trying to control leads to ruin. Trying to grasp, we lose. Allow your life to unfold naturally. Know that it too is a vessel of perfection. Just as you breathe in and breathe out, there is a time for being ahead, and a time for being behind, a time for being in motion, and a time for being at rest. A time for being safe, and a time for being in danger. To the sage, all of life is a movement toward perfection. So what need has he for the excessive, the extravagant, or the extreme? So this will be the last one from this book. We tend to think that extreme is good in many ways, but it's not necessary to live in extremes. It's not necessary to make things difficult. We love drama, don't we? But I think we ought to reserve drama for entertainment rather than for our way of living. A great scholar hears of the Tao and begins diligent practice. A middling scholar hears of the Tao and retains some and loses some. An inferior scholar hears the Tao and roars with ridicule. Without that laugh, it would not be the Tao. So there are ways of constructive sayings on this. The way of illumination seems dark. Going forward seems like retreat. The easy way seems hard. True power seems weak. True purity seems tarnished. True clarity seems obscure. The greatest art seems unsophisticated. The greatest love seems indifferent. The greatest wisdom seems childish. The Tao is hidden and nameless. The Tao alone nourishes and brings everything to fulfillment. So I want to read a couple verses from the Tao of Healing. And this is verse number 1 that I read to you. And see how different it is. It's just amazing. Before the birth of the physical, there was the birth of potential. Before potential, something primal. A beingness, one life, silent, unmoving, unchanging. The unspoken beauty of truth, mother only to itself. It has been called God, Tao, Divine Mother, Universal Mind. Today it feels good to call it love. Or perhaps spirit of love, since spirit implies an all-pervading greatness, as common as one's breath. Love is not an emotion or a feeling. It is the formlessness and substance permeating the seen and the unseen. It is the seed and womb of the universe. Call it what you will, it resides just beyond the limits of our abilities to describe. It has been said God is love. Thus, the heavens seek love. Earth seeks love. People seek love. That is what makes us great. People abide on the earth. The earth abides in the heavens. The heavens abide in love. Love abides in all. That is what makes us one. In verse number 2, true healing defined is limited, and so is not true healing. As our concept of God and Goddess are just that, only concepts. Before creation, wholeness. Healing was born of the womb of duality. And whether a person is ill and well, living in darkness or enlightenment, it is the same. Only our dreaming divides them. The essence of both is ever new joy, joy blossoming into joy, the mother and father of all things. So, if you can understand that, you're doing much better than I am. But I believe it's really important to explore the mysterious and to welcome mystery. And to welcome that path in our lives that is not straight, not organized, neither happy nor sad, but just helping us be, just to be. Not to be a certain way. We can't be a certain way. And we certainly can't ask others, because we can't ask that of ourselves. We can't ask that of others. We can't ask our government to be a certain way, although we really try. And we really profoundly, extensively explore that possibility. And I'm one of those too. I want some sanity in this world. But there isn't any. So, that being said, I believe it's very important to show up for your personal Tao. And that's one thing I hope to share with you, is that each of us have our own personal Tao. Each of us have the places of light and dark within us that play with each other. Play with each other. Each of us. Do you want to understand the Tao? I pulled this out of somewhere. Have no thought, make no effort, be in harmony with nature and with your own nature. Do you want to find peace in the Tao? Go nowhere. Do nothing. Do you want to reach the Tao? Start at no place and follow no road. So the other thing I want to tell you is make sure you go vote.